So I'm going to try to do a short video on time, and I'm just going to bring up more questions, more things. So please put a comment in because that's probably where the video is going. I have no solutions except to say that time is probably a construct of mind. There's something about mind and time. They seem so intertwined that it's well, as soon as one disappears, the other does. And that's the quintessential element of the mystical experience. And at the same time, it's the same thing that happens when we experience the now. And so William James asked this question 100 years ago. He said, how long is the now? And to my understanding, there's no one who's even tried to give an answer because the now is outside of time, which is to say it's outside of mind. And that's why all the problems disappear. And I'll talk about that at the very end. And of course, that's why the mind it needs time. And of course, it's probably not a coincidence that one of the most obvious aspects of mind is that we think one thought at a time. And that's a really interesting phrase. I couldn't find much on it. If you find something like, why would we put that one thought at a time? It definitely hints at the relationship between time and mind. And of course, physicists have used time, but it's strange because there's a theory of everything now that doesn't even have time in the equation. And at the same time, Einstein talked about how so many strange things happen with time, particularly when we move in space. And again, there's interesting that time and space are these things that the thinking mind has such a difficult time thinking about. And so you can't think about the now. And that's why I don't think anyone has measured the now, because the now is outside of time. And the same thing happens with space. And so you might remember as a kid when, someone came, how big is the universe? And they might have said so many light years across or something, but then it became a mystery because you would say, well, what's the universe in? And in other words, it was almost impossible to think about some existence without space. In the same way, it's very difficult to think about existence without time. But we know a couple things. We know, again, the mystical experience is a timeless one. We know that, well, we don't know. This is my speculation with this video, is that there's something about the process of mind that creates the illusion of time. And yes, it's a persistent one. Just as Einstein said, time is an illusion, but a persistent one. The self is an illusion, but it's a persistent one. Thoughts, the thinking mind illusions are illusions, but they are very persistent ones. But we can experience for ourselves that when the mind ceases to be overactive, that our problems seem to diminish. And no mind, no time, no self. And when you get to that, that's probably the best definition you can come up with, one of the better definitions you can come up with what enlightenment is. But I'll leave with the relationship between time and self and conflict and drama. And so I'll put in the description a link from just a little piece from a Star Trek episode. And it was so interesting because I think they put this all together in a wonderful way. And so Wesley Crusher was one of the characters, and he found himself in this moral dilemma because some really nasty stuff was happening. It happened in Earth's history, and it was happening again. And so he really felt like he had to step in and stand up and make a change, which so many of us feel like so often. But the time traveler was another interesting character who was outside of time and realized and even talked to Wesley that time is really a human construct, and there's a reality far more vast than we think there is. And here he is, Wesley's in the middle of this conflict, and he wants to do something to help. And then all of a sudden time stops. And then the time traveler appears, and he gives Wesley this speech. But the most important thing, and what I really think is worth pondering, is what do we do in moral dilemmas? And the solution, at least in this episode, was to walk away, which is to literally say walk away from time itself, because time is the construct in which drama and suffering take place. And so Wesley was told, have faith, that these minds can figure it out on their own. And so they walk away from the conflict. And so it really is a cool piece of symbolism that the state of no mind is a state of no time. But from a practical sense, that state has no problems. That state is the feeling of perhaps our true being, which is timeless, at peace, non-conflict, and beyond what we might consider. I don't know if this is a simulation or not, but and it's a fun one, super cool in so many ways. But there is a reality that seems to be far more vast, and it seems to be without time.